Hey everybody, Ash here with another GMG rulebook review. Today we're looking at the newest Chaos Battletome from Games Workshop, Beasts of Chaos. This one's been a long time coming. This army hasn't really been updated in quite some time. I think probably 2011 or 2012 was the most recent, I think, model update for this army. And they're getting a couple new kits to go along with this Battletome. Primarily they're getting endless spells, which is pretty cool, which include 3 different variations, so like most of the new faction books. And as was of course predicted when the new edition came out, everybody's getting at least 3 new things that you can summon and have fly around on the table and murder stuff. So in this case, it's going to be the Taurus, the Dirge Horn, and the Dire Flock that will be able to be summoned by Beast of Chaos wizards and zip around the table and do murdery Beast of Chaos things. So really cool new models and being added to the range. And that really is it for new model kits. Now there is one sort of new thing. A certain model kit, the Zangor Enlightened, are being given a new option, which is to be mounted or on foot and cost different points to do so. This is the first time to my knowledge that they've actually included that. Most mount swaps, like the Free Guild General and stuff like that, don't tend to cost points in match play, but in this case you can pay a reduced point cost, take them on foot, not model them on their Discs of Tzeentch, or you can model them on Discs of Tzeentch and take them on foot now as the flyers that they've typically been in the past. So that's what's new and exciting. What's gone from the list? A couple of older model kits have been phased out from this book, so your Beast Lord on Chariot unfortunately is no longer around, and neither is the Centaur Warhoof. Both those models have been retired, although they do have stats still in the AOS app, and of course the Grandfathered War Scroll will be around. They don't have a certain keyword that would make them certain handy, so I don't think either of them have the War Herd keyword. They just have the Beast of Chaos keyword that would allow them to take part in certain army special rules. So rules still exist, models are still around, but of course not in this Battletome anymore. And that's really it for the releases to go alongside this book. So what we're going to do now is dive into our usual thing. We're going to go through and highlight the key changes that you're probably concerned about or thinking about if you are a Beasts of Chaos player, and talk a little bit about where the lore has taken the Beasts of Chaos. They're really playing the primordial children card in this book, and the Beasts of Chaos are kind of being given the role of being the amorphous children of chaos before even the Age of Myth. So before all of the sort of like realms start to get pulled together and evolved, these are the inhabitants of the realms. They're just sort of the gibbering, laughing masses, and they all come back from one alpha beast. Alpha beast is the term given to sort of like the main leader castes in all the Beasts of Chaos armies, and there's one primordial alpha beast that ends up spawning all of these monsters, and the herd stones themselves spit more out as chaos envelops realms and stuff like that. So there are some sort of like, I guess, some paths now that these beasts tread, and they've been given options for all 4 gods of chaos to like worship them. And there's some blasts from the past too. So Morgar, who is an old special character from Warhammer Fantasy Battle, is now actually you can be devoted of Morgar. It's actually like a faction within the Beasts of Chaos, which I think is pretty cool. And he's sort of the Nyarlathotep of the old Warhammer world, the crawling chaos that is just this. He just wants to bring entropy to everything and unravel all order. So that's it. Yeah. So let's talk now about the most key important things, and what we're going to focus on is changes and new stuff. And so what I've done is I've gone through and I've actually highlighted everything that's changed for each war scroll. So I'm not going to go through every single side of every single war scroll. You can see all of the stats already in the AOS app. What I'm going to talk about is the stats that have changed. So if it's not changed, then it's exactly the same as it is in the app right now. You can go look at the app, and just the things that are different are what we'll focus on. So this book contains all the things you need for open narrative and match play, of course. We'll focus a bit on the match play stuff and start off with the allegiance abilities. So first things first, as is tradition, and sorry, the one new other model kit this army gets is the Herd Stone. Sort of it's de rigueur these days with army books that you get a free piece of scenery that shows up in your army. So for instance, with of course the Idoneth Deepkin and their Gloomtide shipwreck, going all the way back to the Sylvaneth and their trees, the Herd Stone is basically deployed before after territories have been chosen, but before players begin to set up their armies. You can set up one Herd Stone wholly within your territory, more than 12 inches from enemy territory, and more than 1 inches from other terrain features. If both players can set up a terrain feature in this manner, each player rolls a die, and whoever rolls higher gets to set theirs up first. Now, the Herdstone, again, it's not required, doesn't cost you any points, but so many abilities proc off the Herdstone, especially these Allegiance abilities, it's basically a must-buy. It's more tied to the army even than like the Gloomtide Shipwreck is. The Gloomtide Shipwreck's a nice bonus. It's more like the Sylvaneth, where so many things tie to the trees, you kind of just have to go and buy lots of trees to play. So, let's talk then about the three sort of like casts inside of, and this is all tied to keywords, the Beasts of Chaos. There is the Bray Herd, the Thunderscorn, and the War Herd, and that's basically three different paths, and there's all the Monsters of Chaos. But those three particular keywords, so for the Bray Herd, it's all your Beastman stuff, including all the Arcanite and Zangor guys. For the Creatures of the Storm, the Thunderscorn, it's the Shaggoth and the Dragon Ogres. And for the War Herd, that's all the Doom Bull and his big boy Minotaurs. Now, each of those keywords gets a special rule just for you being Allegiance Beasts of Chaos. So, the Bray Herd get Ambush. Instead of setting up a Bray Herd unit on the battlefield, you can set it to one side and say that it's set up in ambush as a reserve unit. You can set up one reserves unit in ambush for each Beast of Chaos unit you have on the battlefield, so 1-to-1 ratio. At the end of your movement phase, you must set up all friendly reserve units. So at the end of your first movement phase, all friendly reserve units that are in ambush on the battlefield, wholly within 6 inches of the edge of the battlefield edge, and more than 9 from the enemy. Any reserve units that can't be set up are slain. So you basically have to hide your deployment and then show up along any battlefield edge. Yeah. And more than 9 from enemy units. So you just arrive and encircle people with all your Bray Herd units. So all your Beastman Chariots, your Beast Lord, your Gors, your Ungors, your Vestigors, they just arrive. Pretty cool. Doesn't cost you any points. Creatures of the Storm, at the start of your hero phase, each friendly Thunderscorn unit, more than 3 inches from the enemy, can move a distance equal to in inches to the roll, but cannot move within 3 inches of any enemy units. So you get a free D6 move for all your Thunderscorn units during your hero phase. That's pretty cool. Blood Gorge. At the start of the combat phase, if any attacks made by a War Herd unit in that combat phase destroyed an enemy unit, heal D3 wounds allocated to that War Herd unit. So if you kill anybody, they eat them, they get D3 wounds back. So some built-in healing for your Minotaurs and your Doom Bull is pretty awesome. And then you got your Great Frays. Now the Great Frays are basically like the Enclaves and the Ideneth. They're sort of a faction that you can align yourself with. And if your army is allied with it, then just like taking an enclave, you're tied. You get a special rule. You get a required command, like a trait for your commander, and a required artifact. So it locks you into certain things. You're not going to get to pick and pull from all those, and a required spell actually as well too. So you're not going to get to pick and pull as much as you would normally, and make your own sort of like tailored list of artifacts, command traits, and stuff like that. But you do get the cool sort of like extra army bonus trait. And the three are the All Herd, the Dark Walkers, and the Gave Spawn. And they are detailed a little bit later on. We'll talk about what each of those do in a second. But you can choose to do it, and you can choose which one either best benefits you, or you can paint them in the traditional colors and stuff. They have Primordial Call. You can sum units of Beasts of Chaos on the battlefield if you collect enough Primordial Call points. At the start of your hero phase, you receive 1 Primordial Call point. In addition, in your hero phase, you can choose 1 friendly Beast of Chaos hero within 3 inches of the Herdstone you set up at the start of the battlefield to do a blood ritual. If you do so, pick a friendly Beast of Chaos unit within 3 inches of the Herdstone. They take D3 mortal wounds, and for each mortal wound, you get an additional Primordial Call point. So you can have a Shaman and a unit of Ungors just throwing Ungors into the thing, basically, to turn them into something else. And then you can spend, if you have 3 more Primordial Call points, at the end of your movement phase, to summon a following unit onto the battlefield. Each unit you summon costs a number of Primordial Call points, as shown in the list, and you can only summon a unit if you have enough points to do so. Summon units must be set up wholly within 6 inches of the edge of the battlefield and more than 9 inches from any enemy units. Subtract the cost from your total and then set them up. So for 10 points, you can have a Chimera, or a Gorgon, or 3 Skyfires. For 9, you can have a Chaos Gargan, a Cygor, 10 Zangors. For 8, you can have 3 Bulgors or a Jabberslythe. For 7, you can have Dragon Ogres, or 3 Zangor Enlightened on discs. For 6, 10 Bestigors. For 5, a Cockatrice. For 5, or 3 Zangor Enlightened on foot. For 4, you can have 5 Centaurs, 10 Warhounds, 10 Gors, or 10 Ungor Raiders. And for 3, you can have a Chaos Spawn, a Tuskor Chariot, a Razor Gore, or 10 Ungors. So, yeah, recycling cheap units into big things is pretty awesome. Now, unfortunately, you can choose 1 friendly hero to do it at the start of your battle and say they're doing a blood ritual. You can't do it all the time. So as you run out of dudes, you get to bring in bigger models. It's pretty neat, and you do trade mortal wounds to do so. But yeah, I would say it's pretty cool. It's only 1 per turn. You can get up to 4 per turn, so it's at least turn 3 until you're summoning like a gore, like a big guy, like a Sigor or a Chimera. But you could easily recycle. You can easily recycle 10 like Ungor Raiders or whatever's cheap into, or even, I don't know what the cheapest wound ratio is. I'll have to look it up. But you can definitely recycle cheap units into like a 200-point unit late game, which is pretty cool. But only one of your heroes can start cutting heads, so it does slow you down a little bit. You max it at 4 per turn. So that's it. Those are the allegiance traits. So let's get on to command traits for your general. Now, there are 6 command traits, 4 different types of alpha beasts. It depends on what the keyword you have for your general is. If he's a Bray Herd, there's 6. If he's War Herd for like a Doom Bull, there's 6. And if he's Thunderscorn, there's 6 as well. So each general gets their own sort of like ones to choose from. So for the Bray Herd, as the Beast Lords and Beast Great Shamans, you have Bestial Cunning. Up to half running down to the friendly reserve unit set up an ambush can arrive in your second turn instead of your first. So that's pretty cool. You can hold back again another quarter of your army. Indomitable Beast, get an extra wound. Apex Predator, reroll wound rolls of 1 paid by your general. Malevolent Despoiler, enemy units cannot receive the benefit of cover within 12 inches of the general. It's really good against Ideneth. Oracle of the Dark Tongue, subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of the enemy units while they're within 12 of your general. Or Shadow Pelt, -1 to hit rolls for attacks that target the general from more than 3 inches away. I think Shadow Pelt's where it's at. If you're asking me which one's the winner there, any minuses to hit is amazing. Because it turns off so many abilities, like shooting abilities and stuff. I would 100% take the Shadow Pelt, I think, every time. For the War Herd, this is your Doom Bull. Eater of Heroes, you can reroll failed hit rolls for attacks made by this general if they target an enemy hero. Rampant Juggernaut, this ferocious alpha beast is all but unstoppable on the charge. You can reroll charge rolls for him within 12 inches of the general. Sorry, for all War Herd units within 12 inches of the general. So you can reroll for yourself, because you are a War Herd unit, and also for your little Minotaurs. Gorger, do not roll a d3 to determine the number of wounds healed by the Blood Gorge battle trait for friendly War Herd. Instead, they all get 3. So for any friendly War Herd units that are within 12 inches of this general. So everybody's getting flat 3 wounds back every time they eat a body, basically. Gouge Tusks. At the end of the combat phase, pick an enemy unit within 3 inches of the general and roll a dice. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2 to 5, they suffer a mortal wound. On a 6, they take d3 mortal wounds. Roaring Brute, subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of the enemy units that are within 12 inches of this general. And Rugged Hide, worsen the rend characteristic of attacks that target this general by 1 to a minimum of dash. I think Rugged Hide wins because it's actually better than certain other rend ignore abilities, like where you ignore rend -1, you just worsen the rend. That's huge. Having a fixed save, so good. So good against like all the multiple wound splash weapons too, like Great Hammers and Great Staves and stuff. So definitely Rugged Hide, I think, wins there. The Thunderscorn Alpha Beast, this would be your Shaggoth, can have a Tempestuous Tyrant. You can reroll failed wound rolls for attacks made by this general that target a monster. He doesn't like to have other monsters rival him. Magnetic Monstrosity, enemy units cannot retreat while they're within 3 inches of this general. It's kind of neat. Trap wizards and stuff. Father of the Storm, when you use the Creatures of the Storm battle trait, you can reroll the dice to determine how far they move if the general's on the battlefield. That's pretty neat. So all of your guys now, if you skew into Shaggoths, can reroll that die. Lightning Fast Monstrosity, this general fights at the start of the combat phase if it made a charge move in the same turn, before the players start picking other units to fight in the combat phase, so he always strikes first. Adamantine Scales, add +1 to their save. And Ancient Beyond Knowing, at the start of the battle round, you receive d3 additional command points. Ancient Beyond Knowing that's really good. Extra command points is huge. Adamantine Scales, +1 save is pretty good for a fighting hero, but yeah, d3 command points every turn. Oh, that might win. That might make him the general for a lot of reasons. All right, so let's get on to Artifacts of Power. Just like with the command traits, there are 3 paths to your artifacts. So your Bray Herd, your War Herd, and your Thunderscorn can all have their different artifacts and play with their own toys. So for the Bray Herds, you have Ram Horn Helms. After the bearer completes a charge move, pick an enemy unit within 1 inch and they take d3 mortal wounds. You have the Bray Blast Trumpet. Add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Bray Herd units while they are wholly within 18 inches of the bearer. If those units use the Bray Herd ambush battle trait to set up on the battlefield that turn. So +1 to hit rolls if they ambush that turn. Nice. The Knowing Eye, at the start of your hero phase, roll a dice if the bear is on the battlefield. On a 4+, you get an additional command point. Lots of ways to get command points here. Volcanic Axe, pick one of the bear's melee weapons, add 1 to the weapon's damage characteristic. In addition, each time you make an unmodified hit roll of 6 for an attack made by this weapon, the target suffers a mortal wound after all the bear's attacks have been resolved. The Bleeding Gnarl Staff, some of these names are great. If the bear is within 1 inch of a terrain feature at the end of your movement phase, roll a die. On a 3+, each enemy unit within 1 inch of that terrain feature suffers a mortal wound. And Troggoth Hide Cloak. Could you imagine making a cloak out of a Troggoth's hide? At the start of your hero phase, you can heal 1 wound that's been allocated to the bearer, so you have some built-in healing. Troggoth Hide Cloak. I mean, they're 5-6 wound heroes. They're not super durable, but being able to come back, that's pretty cool. Especially if, like, you used that to feed your herdstone. He's a regenerating baby guy to feed your herdstone. Spoils of the War Herds. This is for the war-tiered heroes. This is for your Doom Bull. Cleaver of the Brass Bull. Pick one of the bear's melee weapons, improve its rend by 1. In addition, the unmodified hit rolls of 6, add 1 to the damage characteristic of the weapon for that attack. Gilded Horns. After the bearer has made a charge move, pick an enemy unit within 1 inch of the bear and roll a number of dice equal to the charge roll for that charge move. For each 5+, the enemy suffers a mortal wound. Glyph Etched Talisman. The bearer can attempt to unbind 1 spell in the hero phase as if they were a wizard. Blackened Armor of Chaos, forged in the Balefire. This armor carries a dark blessing. Roll dice each time you allocate a mortal wound to the bear. On a 4+, it's ignored. That's a great way to splash mortal wounds. And the Champion's Doom Cloak, add 2 to the charge rolls for the bear. And Herdstone Shard. When Bulgor units wholly within 6 inches of the bearer use their Blood Greed ability, it activates on unmodified 5 or 6. That's pretty cool. And then Spoils of the Thunderscorn. This is for your Shaggoth. Ancestral Azurite Blade. Pick one of the bear's melee weapons and improve its rend by 2. Oh, that's so good. Lightning Chained Bracers. Reroll failed hit rolls for attacks made by the bearer. Thunderstrike Lodestone. Once per battle, its bearer is on the battlefield. If they can bolt, once per battle, if the bearer is on the battlefield, they can call down a bolt of lightning. If they do so, heal D3 wounds allocated to the bearer. In addition, roll a die for each unit within 1 inch of the bearer. On a 2+, they suffer a mortal wound as he calls the lightning. So some built-in healing that splashes some damage. Horn of the Tempest. Friendly Thunderscorn units wholly within 18 inches of the bearer at the start of the phase can make a charge move in that phase, even if they ran in the same turn. So running and charging with your Shaggoth and your your Dragon Ogres. Tanglehorn Familiar. Once per battle at the start of the enemy hero phase, you can pick an enemy wizard within 12 inches of the bearer, and that wizard cannot cast any spells. Just shut up, Morathi. That's amazing. And then Ruinous Icon. Each time the bearer is affected by a spell or endless spell on a 4+, ignore the effects of that spell on the bearer. Ugh, that's real good. That's another shut up Morathi right there. And so let's get on to spells. There are 2 levels of spells here, Brayherd Wizards and then Thunderscorn Wizards, because the Doom Bull it does not cast spells. He didn't go to school. So let's talk about the Brayherd ones. These are, of course, in addition to any they know themselves or Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield. So Vile Tide has a casting value of 6. If successful, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster. It's visible to them. That unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If the unit's within 6 inches of the caster, it suffers D6 instead. Whoa, scary when you get close. Vicious Stranglethorns. Its casting value 7. If cast, pick a terrain feature within 24 inches of the caster. It's visible to them. Each enemy unit within 3 inches takes D3 mortal wounds, so you make terrain explode. Savage Dominion, casting value of 5. If cast, pick an enemy monster that's visible and within 18 inches. If the caster rolls 2d6, if the roll is equal to greater than their bravery, they move 3 inches toward the closest model. You then pick a unit within 1 inch of the monster and roll a die. For each of their wounds characteristic. On a 4+, take mortal wounds. So if you get like a 14 wound monster, send it towards an enemy unit. If they end within an inch, 14 dice, 4+ mortal wounds. Yeah, that'd be bad for Beast Claw Raiders for sure. Tendrils of Atrophy. Tendrils of Atrophy is a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick an enemy within 12 inches of the caster that's visible to them. Until your next hero phase, subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks to target that unit. Oh, that's really good. Debuffing armor is really good. Wild Rampage. Wild Rampage is a casting value of 6. Actually, Tendrils of Atrophy would be a good way to get around the Knights for Ideneth, because you're subtracting from the roll, not from their armor. That's That's really cool. Wild Rampage has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick a unit within 12 inches of the caster. It's visible to them. Until your next hero phase, you can reroll failed wound rolls for attacks with melee weapons made by that unit. However, subtract -1 from saves. So you make them go crazy and they stop worrying about themselves. And then Titanic Fury, casting value 7. If successfully cast, pick a friendly Beast of Chaos monster within 12 inches of the caster. That's visible to them. Until your next hero phase, add 1 to the attack characteristic of all of their melee weapons. Pretty cool for chimeras and stuff. And then there's the Lore of the Dark Storms. These are your Thunderscorn abilities. There's Thunder Wave, cast on a 7. If successfully cast, each unit within 3 inches of the caster takes D3 mortal wounds, and Thunderscorn units aren't affected. Hailstorm, casting value 6. If cast, pick an enemy within 21 inches of the caster, invisible. So your next hero phase, have the move characteristic of their run charge rolls for that unit. You can slow down an impending charge. And then Sundering Blades, casting value 7. If cast, pick a friendly unit wholly within 18 inches of the caster and visible. Until your next hero phase, improve their rend of their weapons by 1. So many ways to build rend in this army. Madness. And that's it for our sort of artifacts and spells. So let's talk about the 3 different herds, and these are again like factions inside the book. They'll allow you to get some special abilities, but again, they lock your choice for your spell, your artifact, and your trait, so bear that in mind. So first is the All Herd. These are the most numerous of the great phrase. They're teeming beast herds have spread throughout the mortal realms, and by unfolding the most wily and powerful chaos creatures into their ranks, the All Herd continues its raging stampedes to grow. Their ability is Bestial Might. Subtract 1 from Battleshock tests made for all herd units in the battlefield Battleshock phase if they are picked to fight in the combat phase. If they're fighting, they're braver. And their command ability, Booming Roar. You can use this command ability at the start of your hero phase. You get an additional Primordial Call point, so an extra point. So if you want to do summons, this is the one to do. So think about that. 1 plus the 1 from Primordial Call plus D3 if you do a sacrifice. Second turn potentially, you could be bringing on a big extra monster. So command traits, so that was your command ability, so you trade a CP for it. Command trait, all herd general must have this command trait. Dominator, you can reroll charge rolls made for friendly all herd units wholly within 18 inches of the general, if this general is within 3 inches of enemy units. So he calls everybody to him basically when he's fighting. And there's Artifact of Power, the Blade of the Desecrator. Pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, improve the rend characteristic of that weapon by 1. For attacks that target a unit of 10 or more models, improve it by 2 if it's 20 or more. Attacks with this weapon cannot have a rend characteristic greater than -3. So you can have -3 rend if you're fighting 20 or more dudes, because you like to desecrate things. So the next one is the Dark Walkers, this great fray. The Dark Walkers are apex ambushers who rule over the most remote places in each realm. Spiteful and wily, they hunt by luring their prey deep into the ancient forests and desolate war wastelands, encircling enemy armies and cutting off escape routes before pouncing from the shadows to butcher their terrified enemies. So your ability is Shadow Beasts. Warherd and Thunderscorn units are considered to have the Brayherd keyword. Oh, now everyone can ambush, but not your monsters. Bear that in mind, the monstrous units can't. In addition, up to half of the reserve units that are set up in the ambush can arrive in your second movement phase instead of your first movement phase. So that other command trait that let you do that, you don't have to take. This one just lets you do it, basically. Artifacts of Power, Desolate Shard. Once per battle at the start of your hero phase, the bearer can use the Desolate Shard if they're within 3 inches of a terrain feature. They do so, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch, and on a 4+, they take a D3 mortal wounds. So it's that spell, basically, as a Artifact of Power. Command Trait. Nomadic Leaders, add 1 to run rolls for friendly Dark Walkers while they're within 12 inches of the general. And remember, there's going to be a lot of things that let you run and charge in this army. And then Savage Encirclement is your command ability for CPs. You can use this command ability at the end of your movement phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Dark Walker's units that are more than 9 inches from the enemy and wholly within 18 of this hero, or of a friendly hero actually. Remove that unit from the battlefield and place it to one side at the end of your next movement phase. Set that unit up anywhere in the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy units. So you can use a CP to just basically pull units off the table and put them where you want. And then last is my favorite one, it's the Gave Spawn. The Gave Spawn are worshippers of the chaos entity known as Morgur, the Master of Skulls. And in his name, they seek to reduce all of existence to a writhing whirl of pure anarchy. I think this is my favorite one, just thematically. Grotesquely twisted, even by the standards of the Beast of Chaos, the creatures of the Gave Spawn launch stampedes to spread their development throughout the civilized lands. The ability is the Gift of Morgur. If a friendly Gave Spawn hero is slain, roll a die before moving the model. On a 2+, 1 Chaos Spawn's added to your army. Set the Chaos Spawn up anywhere in the battlefield within 6 inches of the slain hero. If they had a keyword such as Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, or Tzeentch, give them the same keyword for the Chaos Spawn. If they did not, they cannot use the Cursed of the Dark God's ability to choose a keyword for that chaos spawn. So you basically get to turn all your heroes into spawns when they die, which I think is super cool. And then Propagator, their command ability is Propagator of Devolution. You can use this command ability at the start of the combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Gave spawn unit wholly within 12 inches of the friendly Gave spawn chaos spawn and add 1 to its attack. So you make chaos spawn better at fighting, basically. Your command trait, Unraveling Aura. This general can attempt to unbind a spell. If they're already a wizard, then they can unbind an extra spell each turn. And Artifact of Power, the Mutating Gnarl Blade. Pick one of your melee weapons and add 2 to the damage characteristic of this weapon. However, after each unmodified hit roll of 1, it inflicts a mortal wound on the bearer after all attacks have been made, so it bites you, but you can have like a damage like 4 or 5 weapon. It's bananas. Depending on who you give that to, that's crazy. They're super cool. So then we've got battle plans and Path to Glory, of course, as stuff in here, and let's get on to the War Scroll battalions. So, War Scroll battalions. Now, there's basically one for each of the great phrase in here. There is the Marauding Bray Herd, which would include a Beast Lord, 1 to 3 Great Bray Shamans, 2 to 6 units of Bestigors or Tuscarora Chariots in any combination, 3 to 9 units of Gors, and 4 to 12 units of Ungors, Ungor Raiders, or Centigors in any combination. Now, it's going to run you, Marauding Bray Herd, a grand total of 180 points. It's pretty spendy. But you get Ferocious Despoilers, add 1 to charge rolls for friendly Bray Herd units from the battalion that were set up in the battlefield during the same turn. So that means that you have to be 9 inches away during your ambush, but you charge on an 8. It's pretty cool. Then you have Hungering War Herd, and this is for your Doom Bulls. This is all your War Herd guys. And you have to have at least 1 Doom Bull, 3 units of Bulgors, and 1 to 3 Cygors or Gorgons. Blood Scent units from this battalion can pile an additional 3 inches when they pile in. So a 6-inch pile in for them. That's pretty neat. Now, it's going to run you a grand total of, for Hungering War Herd, 150 points. But the model requirement isn't as high. If you're running that kind of, you're running those, it's 6-inch pile-in's pretty great, and you're probably not going to not meet that model count if you're already running Bulls. The Thunderscorn Storm Herd, 1 to 3 Shaggoths and 3 to 9 units of Dragon Ogres. Again, pretty easy to pull off if you're going to tech into that, basically, Thunderscorn. In your hero phase, you can roll a die for each unit in the battlefield. From this battalion, on a 4+, they heal a wound. After rolling a die for each unit from this battalion, roll a die for each enemy unit within 1 inch of them, and on a 4+, they take a mortal wound. There's just a storm running all the time. And then there's this one, which basically mixes all 3 of the keywords. The Desolating Beast Herd. It requires a Beast Lord or Doom Bull, 1 to 3 Great Shamans, 1 to 3 units of Bestigors or Bulgors in any combination, 1 to 3 units of Gors or Tuscarors in any combination, 2 to 6 units of Ungors or Raiders in any combination, and 1 Gorgon or Cygor 0 to 1. And if the unmodified hit rolls for an attack made by this battalion, and it's wholly within enemy territory is a 6, it's 2 hits instead of 1. I think because people tend to like have mixed model collections, the Desolating Beast Herd, because its requirements are all over the place keyword-wise, it's probably going to be really popular. And the Thunderscorn Storm Herd costs you 190 points for all that healing, whereas the Desolating one is only 150. To do double hits on 6s in enemy territory. That's pretty great as far as they go. And there's 4 more War Scroll battalions, and these War Scroll battalions are all based on one of the Gods of Chaos. So the Brass Despoilers, 1 to 4 heroes from the list of Beast Lord or Doom Bull, 3 to 8 chosen from Bestigors, Bulgors, or Gors, and 0 to 8 from Centigors, Dragon Ogres, or Tuscarora Chariots, and then 0 to 2 from Cygors or Gorgons. So you have to have 4 units, a hero, and 3 to 8 other units. They all have the Khorne keyword in this battalion. This is how you get them the Khorne keyword. And they get Martial Ferocity. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by units from this battalion while they're wholly within 9 inches of another unit from the same battalion. In addition, once per battle in your hero phase, you can unleash the battalion's Bestial Rage. If you do so until your next hero phase, you can reroll failed wound rolls for attacks made by units from this battalion while they're wholly within 9 inches of another unit in this battalion. And they all gain the Khorne keyword. So there isn't give them a keyword in this book, it's you buy the battalion to give them the keyword, which I think is kind of interesting. Now that does mean that if you're taking this battalion, and it's the Brass Despoiler, it's 190 points, but they get some pretty cool abilities and they all gain the Khorne keyword. There's the Phantasmagoria of Fate. It consists of the following units: 1 to 4 Beasts of Chaos heroes in any combination, 3 to 9 units from the following list: Bestigors, Gors, Zangors, Ungors, or Ungor Raiders, 0 to 9 units chosen any combination from the following: Bulgors, Centaurs, Dragon Ogres, Zangor Enlightened, Skyfires, and Chariots, Tuskar Chariots. And 0 to 2 are Cygors or Gorgons. So basically anything in the army. Like a legal army almost just makes this. And then you gain Devourers of the Arcane. Units from this battalion do not have the wizard keyword, can attempt to unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase as if they were a wizard. So literally every unit becomes a wizard for the purpose of unbinding. And then Covens of the Changer, you all gain the Tzeentch keyword. Now that one, the Phantasmagoria, is 200 points. But every unit in your army is a wizard for unbinding. That's kind of madness. The Pestilent Throng. And what's interesting about this, I think you're going to have to take this battalion now to get the Nurgle keyword on beast units to take them inside the Magakin. So you can't just give these guys the Nurgle unit or the Nurgle keyword anymore. You're only going to get it from buying this battalion. It's 1 to 4 heroes from the following list, any combination: Beast Lord, Dragon Ogre, Shaygoth, Doombull, or Great Bray Shaman. 3 to 7 units from the following list: Bestigors, Gors, Ungors, and Ungor Raiders. And 0 to 7 of Centaurs, Bulgors, Dragon Ogres, and Tuskar Chariots. And 0 to 2 Cygors or Gorgons. You get the Entropic Deluge. If a unit from this battalion is destroyed, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 7 inches, and on 2+ to take a mortal wound. So if a unit gets destroyed, you pop 2+ mortal wounds. And then Vectors of the Plague God, they all get the Nurgle keyword. Now the Pestilent Throng is going to cost you 200 points to blow up, basically. And then finally, the Depraved Drove of Slaanesh, my favorite name for the War Scrolls. 1 to 4 heroes chosen from Beast Lord, Dragon Ogre, Shaygoth, Doombull, or Great Bray Shaman. 3 to 6 Centaurs, Gors, Tuskar Chariots, Ungors, or Ungor Raiders. And 0 to 6 Bestigors, Bulgors, Dragon Ogres, and 0 to 2 Cygors or Gorgons. You get Covetous Fury as your special ability. You can reroll failed charge rolls made for units of this battalion if they're within 12 inches of the enemy hero with an artifact of power, because they want his shiny thing. In addition, you can reroll hits for attacks with melee weapons by models in this battalion that target the hero with an artifact of power. And then marked by the Decadent Fiend, you get the Slaanesh keyword. So those are all your War Scroll battalions. They're all pretty spendy. I mean, they're 150 to 200 basically for your different ones. They're the only way you can get keywords now, it looks like, for the different Gods of Chaos. And the nice thing though about them is they're all pretty open-ended. For the most part, the list was you have to take battle lines, and you have to take things that you have legally in your army anyway. So they're pretty flexible as far as like the requirements for models, but you do have to pay points for them. You do get some cool abilities. I think the Gods of Chaos ones are probably actually a little bit more forgiving than the Great Phrase are, just by the nature of the fact that they give you all of the bonuses basically for stuff you were going to take anyway, and you just pay a little bit extra points for them. So let's get on to units. Now, once again, I'm only going to highlight changes. So this is going to be pretty quick because I'm not going to tell you all the stats. Go to the AOS app and look at the stats for yourself. I'm only going to tell you if something changed because all of these units are already in the AOS app. There's no new units. The only ones I'll tell you about are the Endless Spells because they're new in the Herdstone. But I'll just tell you if anything changed or not. So the Beast Lord, his only changes, they upped the range of his command ability from 16 inches to 18 inches for Grizzly Trophy. For the Great Bray Shaman, the biggest change is he now wounds on a 3+ instead of a 4+ with his Fetish Staff. And it's units within 12 inches of him instead of 8 inches of him for infused with Bestial Vigor. So he has a greater range for that now, which is great because it's wholly within as well. For the Gors, they didn't really change. The only difference now is Anarchy and Mayhem. There's no additional bonuses for a dice roll. It's just you get the add 1 to attack characteristic if you have 20 or more models in the unit. There's no random crazy anarchy bonus. There's no dice rolling. It's just that flat bonus. For Ungors, their half shields only work in melee now. So you only get +1 to your save in melee, not against shooting. For your Ungor Raiders, they cleared up that your Vile Invaders doesn't let you run, so it's not a normal move anymore. It's only a 6-inch redeploy basically for your after the army is set up walk, so no moving and running. It's not just a normal movement. For your Bestigors, they've changed the despoiler thing to not units with banners. It's just enemy units with 10 or more models. It was kind of random that they basically procced off of units that had and carried like banners and totems. Now it's just 10 or more models. They get to add 1 to hit rolls, and they get to reroll hit rolls of 1 when they target order enemy units. So that's pretty cool. So bonus against order and just attacking big units as opposed to attacking guys with flags. And then you get the added special rule, Bestial Charge. Add 1 to the attack characteristic of this unit's melee weapons in a turn in which they made a charge move. So they get 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, run -1, 1 damage, if they're attacking 10 or more models, and if it's order, it's reroll 1s. That's pretty great. Your Tuskor Chariots changed a bit. Your Gnarled Spear now hits on 4s instead of 5s, which is pretty great. And you have no rerolls to hit for Tuskor charging. Instead, you reroll charge rolls. In addition, add 1 to the attack characteristic of this unit's melee weapons in a turn in which they made a charge move. So not rerolling hits, just bonus attacks. And you get a new rule, which is Despoilers. Add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by a Despoiler axe that targets enemy units with 10 or more models. In addition, you can reroll hits of 1 against order units because it's the same as, it's basically the fact that you have a Bestigor running on the back. They gave him the Despoiler rule that the Bestigors have now instead. Your Doom Bull has changed quite a bit. All of his weapons are new. So instead of having a Slaughter Axe or Great Axe, he now has a Bullgorger Horns Bullgore Horns and Slaughterer's Axe. So they've basically taken away all the variant miniatures for him. It's just a single stat line now, but they gave him some more attacks. So he's got Bullgore Horns, range 1 inch, 2 attacks, 4+4+, 1 damage, no rend, and a Slaughterer's Axe, which is 3 attacks, 3+3+, -2, 3 damage. Now imagine you give him the +2 damage axe, so he's damage 5. And you give him some bonus rend, so he's rend 3. That's so good. So good. He just kills everything he touches. His abilities, so Blood Greed has changed. Each unmodified wound roll of 6 for attacks made by this unit inflict a mortal wound on the target in addition to normal damage, not extra attacks, because they have the trait now for that, so it doesn't give them those bonuses. Slaughterer's Call, it's not 16 inches anymore, it's only 12 inches. You can use this command ability at the start of your combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly warrior unit within 12 of a friendly model, add 1 to the wound rolls for them until the end of the phase. Changes to the Sigor? None. He's exactly the same. The Gorgon, he's got Ravenous Blood Greed changed. It's each wound of 6 for attacks made by this model, inflicts D3 mortal wounds instead of normal damage, not an extra attack. So he just does mortal wounds now instead of rolling extra dice, which is just way better. And he doesn't heal anymore. The Swallow Hole, he can't gorge on people and have built-in healing. So Swallow Hole still exists, but his healing ability is just gone. So no built-in healing for the Gorgon anymore. Bye-bye. Let's talk about Bullgors. They've got horns as well, so just like the Doom Bull, they got bonus attacks. A 1 inch range, 2 4+4+, no rend, 1 damage attack. The Warherd Drummer doesn't need enemy units within 12 inches anymore. You just get the +1 to charge rolls for including the drummers. Blood Greed, just like the change to the Doom Bull, each unmodified wound roll of 6 for attacks by this unit inflicts a mortal wound on the target in addition to any normal damage, not the extra attack. You just go straight to being a mortal wound, which is pretty super sweet. Centaurs have Bravery 5 now instead of Bravery 3, and their drunkenness doesn't add to their bravery. That rule's gone, but they've gotten a new weapon, which is a Clawed Forelimb. It's a 1 inch range, 2 attack, 5+5+, 1 damage with no rend. And their Beast Bucklers, just like the Ungors, unfortunately only work in melee. They don't work against shooting anymore, so 5+ save, 4+ in melee. And their Drunken Revelry is a brand new rule, and so instead of adding to their courage, at the start of your hero phase, you can say they're drinking wildly. You get +1 to hit for attacks made by this unit, which is great, but they also get +1 to hit against them as well. So they're so drunk, they're good at hitting people, but unfortunately they also get easier to hit. The Dragon Ogre Shaggoth changed not at all, except for in the best possible way. He no longer gets worse when he's wounded. Just no wound chart. His stats are always the top stats he had before, and he never gets worse. It's super sweet. Dragon Ogres, they're no longer wizards. That's gone. Sorry, guys. No, not wizards anymore. Can't cast spells. And they don't get the Furious Attack anymore either. What they get now is a new Storm Rage. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for this unit while they're wholly within 12 inches of the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, so he becomes their leader, basically. And instead of having the Furious Attack for their paired weapons, they reroll 1s, they just get 6 attacks instead of 4 with them. So their paired ancient weapons just went up to tons more attacks. Chaos Warhound stayed exactly the same. Chaos Spawn stayed exactly the same. Jabba Scythe, no wound chart either. Like half the 10 wound monsters just lost their wound charts, which is amazing because they never get worse. They've added to his Aura of Madness that you can't unbind spells either if you go crazy. So one of the things you could do is you couldn't cast spells in his last set of written rules, now you can't unbind them as well. It did make a lot of sense that you could stop Wizard from casting, but not from unbinding. And unfortunately, they reduced his Spurting Bowel Blood to 1 wound on a 4+ instead of D3. So It's not just like, oh look, I took 9 wounds, here's 4 plus 9 D3 attacks. It's only 1 for each hit. It's just pretty okay. I'm okay with that. He doesn't just kill everything he touches when he dies. The cockatrice had his attacks that were random, the d6, changed to 4, and likewise, when he does his Maddened Ferocity, he doesn't get 2d6, he doubles to 8, which is nice. And he doesn't have a wound chart, so same top stats as currently in the army book, or the app. The Chimera changed a bit. He got a bonus attack on his Avian head, Draconic head, and Leonine head. They all have 3 attacks flat now. He did keep his wound chart, however. That's the primary change. He's got a bonus attack on everything. Mr. Chaos Gargant, he changed a little bit for Timber and Drunken Stagger. You don't lay the model down anymore, you just pick a point within 3 inches of them. So no more having to use your model as a template, which is nice. And stuff them in a bag, that got changed from 1 inch range to 3 inch range, which is pretty cool. Razor Gores, you reroll charge rolls for this unit, and in addition, if this unit made a charge move in the turn, an unmodified roll of 6 does a mortal wound in addition to any normal damage, not adding +1 to hit, which is pretty great, so Stampede got better. Skyfires stayed almost exactly the same. The only thing is their enhancement got moved over to the Shaman. So before it said their enhancement, if they're within range of a Shaman, they get X or Y. Now the Shaman has an ability that says, if they're within range, they get X or Y. So they've just put all the things that tie to the Shaman on the Shaman's War Scroll, which just makes more sense. The Zangor Shaman, like I just said, all that stuff's on there. Other than that, he stayed exactly the same. But the skill for the Enlightened is also on there as well, the way he affects Enlightened. The Enlightened, as I said earlier, have an option now to be mounted or dismounted. So if you dismount them, what happens is, if they come dismounted and if you add the mount, their wound characteristic goes up to 4. They get 16-inch move instead of 6, and the dis 15-inch attack with their teeth and horns. So that's pretty cool. It gives you a sort of a cheaper foot option for the heavy Zangors. Zangors themselves, they're Destined Mayhem. We used to be 9 inches, now 12 inches from Arcanite Heroes. And there's no maximum to Savagery Unleashed. There used to be a maximum. There isn't anymore. I don't know what that means. So those are all our changes for primary units. Let's talk about some endless spells. So first there's the Ravening Direflock. They're going to shoot herds of birds at people. You can summon it on a 5. Only Beasts of Chaos Wizards can attempt to cast this spell. If successfully cast, set up a Direflock model wholly within 12 inches of the caster and more than 3 inches from any other units. Then set up the second and third ones wholly within 6 inches of the first and more from 3 from any unit. So it's a unit of 3 models, basically. They're the Harbingers of Dark Omens. Subtract 2 from the Bravery characteristic of units while they're within 6 inches of any Ravening Direflock models. Beasts of Chaos units are not affected. And Black Souled Cowardice. If a unit finishes move within 1 inch of a Direflock model, remove them from the battlefield. The player whose turn it is taking place must then set up exactly 3, have to set it up again exactly 3d6 inches from a previous location, more than 3 inches from any units, and then set up the other ones within 6 inches of it, and more than 3 from any units. So basically just like runs away. If you try and get near it, it just pops away. So it's hard to stop basically, because it's just gonna bamf out of the way. But whoever's turn it is gets to relocate them, which is nice too. So you can spook them away if you want to. There's the Doomblast Dirge Horn. Summon it on a 6. Again, only Beast of Chaos Wizards can do it. If successfully cast, set it up within 12 inches of the caster. The Booming Cacophony. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by units within 3 inches. Beasts of Chaos are not affected. Rising Discord at the start of each battle round after this model is set up. Add 3 to the range of the model's Booming Cacophony ability. If this model is dispelled, the next time it's set up on the battlefield, the range of this ability starts back at 3 inches, so it resets. Kind of neat though, the minus to hit. That's pretty cool. And then finally the Wildfire Taurus that everybody thought was gonna be a Chaos Dwarf thing. I still think was, but maybe they changed their plan. Summon him on a 6+, and again, only Beast Wizards can do it. Set him up wholly within 12 inches of the caster. It's predatory. It can move 12 inches and can fly. Raging Stampede. When this model is set up, the player set it up can immediately make a move with it. After this model is moved, each unit that was moved over or within 1 inch at the end of its move suffers D3 mortal wounds. If the unit had 10 or more models, it takes D6 instead. If the spell inflicts any wounds, the unit fights at the end of the combat phase after the players have picked any of the units to fight. So they strike last, which can be super gross if you have someone surrounded with a lot of units. And then finally, the Herdstone, the freebie terrain piece that every army is going to kind of need. It's a terrain feature and an obstacle. It's an entropic lodestone. Subtract -1 from save rolls for attacks that target units within 6 inches of this feature. At the start of each battle round, add 6 inches to the range of this ability. It just grows. So you set it up as close to the enemy territory as possible, and it just goes do, 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 do. So by turn 4, it's a 24-inch circle. It's a 48-inch circle, basically, from side to side, just affecting the whole table. Crazy. Beasts of Chaos units are not affected by this ability. That's real good. You're just giving rend 1 to the whole army, basically. Locus of Savagery, because it's not, again, it's subtract 1 from save rolls. So it's not... That's so key. It's not a rend. It just makes saves, like the rolls themselves, bad. Locus of Savagery, Beasts of Chaos units wholly within 6 inches of this feature do not take battle shock tests, and at the start of each battle round, add 6 inches to the range of the ability. The beast herd just gets angrier and angrier, and the mist just gets red when it grows out from it. Again, it's one of those things. They made it free, but they made it such an integral part to the army. Like, I mean, the shoals of fish coming out of the boat are cool, and it is one of the nicest, I think, terrain pieces in my collection of like AOS miniatures. But that Herdstone, you're just crazy if you don't own it. Like, crazy. It's so good. -1 to hit, and then just don't take battle shock tests. Here's your army. Their bravery's not very good, but by the way, by turn 4, it just won't matter. Nothing's ever making any battle shock tests. Just, oh, bananas. All right, well, last but not least, let's talk about point values. Just going to go through what changed from the General's Handbook 2018. Everything else that hasn't changed is the same. Chaos Gargant has gone up from 160 to 180. The Chimera has gone from 220 to 240. Representative 5's got 3 extra attacks. The Jabberslaith went from 140 to 160. Mostly, I think, because of the getting rid of the wound chart. It did lose its splash ability. The Dragon Ogre Shaggoth went from 160 to 180, up by 20. Razor Gores went down from 60 to 40. Of course, there's a new stat line for Enlightened, and they are 100 points on foot, or 140 down from 160 on discs, and Skyfires are down 200 from 220. Worth noting too, of course, this book has the Skyfire addendum, where it's an unmodified roll of 6 now for their mortal wounds and their arrows. Not a roll of 6 or more, only unmodified. So your bonuses to hit, don't do anything to cause more mortal wounds. They kind of made Skyfires not quite as good. Still good, but just not crazy good anymore. So there it is, my review of Chaos Battletome, Beasts of Chaos. Very nice, glossy book. Talks more about sort of the origins of the mortal realms and the children of chaos that lived there before everybody else. Worth a buy, in my opinion. If you're a past Beasts of Chaos stuff and you got some stuff sitting in your closet and you haven't played with it in a while, it definitely forges it into a cohesive army. And I'm really happy to see the monster kits kind of back to the forefront. The Jabberslaith and the Cockatrice and the Chimera are my favorite kits, and they didn't really have a place until now, and now they have a place back in the range, and I'm excited to see them on the table again. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll be back with more GMG book reviews in the future. Till next time, I'm Ash. Happy reading. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below to get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Death Ray Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.